Hi students, this section is 4.6, working with quick graphs using the slope-intercept form. So the slope-intercept form is in the form of y equals mx plus b, as shown right here. The m, as we've been talking about, slope is represented by m, which is your rise over your run. So when you see mx, your m right here is representing your slope of the line. And your b is representing what we call the y-intercept. So when we're working with slope-intercept form, it's in the form of y equals mx plus b, knowing that m is our slope and b is our y-intercept. That's going to help us when we're graphing points on the line. As it mentions here too, m represents the slope of the line, b represents the y-intercept, and the y-intercept means that's where the line crosses at the y-axis. So let's look at an example right here. First example, example number 1. It says y equals 2x plus 3. Identify the slope and identify the y-intercept, and then you're going to graph the line. So my slope is always connected with my x. That's representing your m. My value 2 here is representing my slope of the line. So that's 2. Okay. And then we have my b, my y-intercept, which is 3. And that's where the line crosses the y-axis. So now we can graph this. So when we say the y-intercept crosses the y-axis, remember x goes left and right, the x-axis goes left and right, the y-axis goes up and down. So from there, my starting point is at 3. So I'm going to plot my first point. The y-intercept always is the starting point when you're graphing equations of the line working with slope-intercept form. So I've graphed my y-intercept 3. Now I'm going to look at my slope, which is the value of 2. Remember, slope is rise over run. And my slope here is 2. Think of that as 2 over 1. So we're going to rise from that point 3, rise 2, and we're going to run 1, and we can plot another point to graph this. So if I rise 2, 1, 2, so add 2, and then if I run 1, I can plot a point, and this point is another point that falls within the equation of a line. From there, I can then also go up another 2, 1, 2, and run 1 to graph a third point. Once I've graphed a few points on the line, starting with the y-intercept, then looking at my slope to plot additional points, I'm going to use my straight edge to connect those 3 points, and this is representing the slope of, or the equation of my line working with slope-intercept form. Okay, and notice that this too is a positive slope. Okay, this other one here, I've done these in class, so I'm just going to explain this one here. It says, write the equation 3x plus 4y equals 8. We first need to write that in the slope-intercept form, and that's in the form of y equals mx plus b. Notice I wrote the steps here. So step 1, we're going to rewrite this in the slope-intercept form. So I have 3x plus 4y equals 8. I'm going to subtract 3x to both sides. So then what I get is 4y equals negative 3x plus 8. I need to get rid of this 4 that's connected with the y. So I'm going to divide 4 to each situation here. So I divide 4 here on the left. I also divide 4 by my slope, that negative 3, and by the 4. Notice I wrote it as negative 3x plus 8, and the reason I wrote it in this form is because it's in that mx plus b format. Okay, so I divide 4 to each side. 8 divided by 4 simplifies to 2. Negative 3/4, it cannot simplify any further, so we just leave that. So now I have the equation written in slope-intercept form, which is y equals negative 3/4 x plus 2. So now I can graph this. My y-intercept, my starting point, is at the value 2. Then I'm going to look at my slope. My rise is negative 3. And my run is 4. So I'm from my starting point 2, I can go down 3, and I can go to the right 4 and plot a point. I could also go up 3 and to the left 4 and plot an additional point. When I've graphed those points, I connect the line, and this represents the slope of the equation. Now this slope is starting from the top and going down, and this is what we call a negative slope. So that's pretty much it for this section. We didn't really get into the parallel lines. We'll get into that later. So we're just recognizing the slope-intercept form in the form of y equals mx plus b. And then once we determine our slope m and my y-intercept b, we're then graphing with that on the coordinate plane.